A report by the central bank has stated that it has failed to curb the rising inflation in the country. Despite earlier projection to limit the inflation rate to 7%, the report has shown that the inflation crossed the 7.6% mark. The only positive in the report is that the country has managed to boost its foreign currency reserve due to the policy of minimizing import adopted by the central bank. Good evening, I'm Sapsanamma. Let's begin with the top stories of the hour. The central bank fails to control rising inflation last fiscal year. Foreign currency reserve climbs by 26.6%. Koshi Province Chief Minister Uddhav Thapa to go for a floor test on 21st of August coming Monday. The first meeting of the Provincial Assembly since the formation of new government held today. A Ukrainian drone attack damages a building in central Moscow, causing a blast that was heard across the business district of the Russian capital. Ukraine president calls the attack a natural process. And FIFA says the ongoing Women's World Cup has brought positive changes to the way women's sports was perceived. FIFA earns a profit of over $570 million. Chief Minister of Koshi Province, Uddhav Thapa, is facing a floor test on 21st of August coming Monday. Deputy Speaker of Koshi Province, Srijana Danwar, informed that the floor test would take place in the meeting of the Provincial Assembly at 1 p.m. on Monday. Chief Minister Thapa also informed the Assembly Secretariat regarding the preparations to take the vote of confidence. Meanwhile, the first meeting of the Provincial Assembly since the formation of the new government has also been held today. Earlier, the UML-led government under Chief Minister Hikmat Singh Karki had collapsed as Maoist Centre and Janata Samajwadi had withdrawn their support to the government. Following this, Chief Minister Karki had ended the House session and had introduced the budget through an ordinance. Nepal Rashtra Bank has failed to control inflation in the past fiscal year based on its own report released earlier today. The central bank had aimed at limiting inflation at 7%. However, inflation reached 7.4%. The highest inflation was reported by transport, restaurant and hotel sector. Prices of food and drinks in restaurants and hotels last year rose by 14.42% and transport fares by up to 13.5%. Loans disbursed by private sectors rose by 3.8%, while the central bank aimed at giving out loans of 12.6%. Liquidity crisis, high interest rates and economic stalemate have been attributed as the reasons behind the failure to meet the loan targets, which ultimately dented the overall economic growth of the country. Meanwhile, the central bank's report shows remittance increased by 21.2% last year, with the country receiving 1,220 billion rupees. A year ago, the remittance had recorded an increment of just 4.8%. The increase in remittance and decrease in imports by 16% had maintained the balance of payment at a surplus of 290 billion rupees. During the Nepalese month of Asar of 2079, BOP was at a deficit of 255 billion rupees. Likewise, the foreign currency reserves, that was 1,215 billion 800 million rupees in the month of Asar in 2079, rose by 26.6% to reach 1,539 billion 360 million rupees by the month of Asar this year. As the end of the month this year, the central bank says state coffers had a deposit of 71 billion 980 million rupees. 12 commercial banks and 16 microfinances merged in the last fiscal. Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal has announced of kicking off the construction works of Karnali Chisapani hydropower project that will have a capacity of 10,800 megawatts. Speaking at an event organized in the capital to mark the 30th anniversary of Nepal Electricity Authority, Premier Dahal said feasibility studies for the project had commenced. The Prime Minister suggested that the Karnali Chisapani hydropower project was the mega project that he had envisioned when he was appointed Prime Minister for the first time. Premier Dahal also said the government had been working to begin the 1,200 megawatts Budi Gandaki Reservoir project. He also said the government intends to encourage domestic consumption of electricity and aims generating revenue by exporting surplus energy, adding that energy infrastructures were the government's top priority. The Prime Minister emphasized that the government will put up maximum possible efforts for a new Electricity Act and relevant policies. Premier Dahal also stated the government will issue a policy for green hydrogen and said all Nepalese will have access to electricity within the next 2 years. It's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion. The question is, why have local bodies continued to face the vacancy of Chief Administrative Officer? Your options are A, indifferent centre, B, unwilling employees, and C, lackluster municipality. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Let's move on to the international update. A Ukrainian drone attack damaged a building in central Moscow earlier today, causing a blast that was heard across the business district of the Russian capital, according to Russian officials. Security personnel and vehicles were seen on the streets near the expo center. A witness who was in the area described it as a powerful explosion. Russian air defense systems shot down a drone and its debris fell on the expo center, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said in a statement on his official channel on Telegram. The expo center is a large space used for massive exhibitions less than 5 kilometers away from the Kremlin. The Russian Defense Ministry said that Ukraine was behind the drone attack. Kyiv was not available for immediate comment, but Ukraine President Zelensky later said the attack was a natural process. Mexican authorities discovered the burnt remains of 4 bodies as the search continues for 5 youths that had disappeared the week before, prompting family and friends of the victims to demand answers. A demonstration to demand answers was held in the western state of Jalisco on Tuesday this week after the 5 youths aged between 19 and 22 disappeared on 11th of August. They had been attending an annual fair in the town of Lagos de Moreno and were last seen in the city's San Miguel lookout. While searching for the youths, authorities secured a farm where they found the burnt remains of 4 people, the Jalisco prosecutor's office announced yesterday. Months-long armed conflict ravaging Sudan is worsening the country's already dire humanitarian conditions as displacement rises to at an alarming rate and millions of people scramble for food and safety. More than 4 million people have been displaced inside and outside the country since the conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces erupted in mid-April this year. According to the International Organization for Migration, at least 24.7 million people, or over half of Sudan's population, are estimated to be in need of humanitarian assistance. Since the outbreak of the conflict, a total of 19 humanitarian aid workers have been killed in 17 separate attacks across the country. Humanitarian facilities, including warehouses, offices and vehicles, have also been repeatedly attacked or looted. The conflict has also dealt a heavy blow to the country's healthcare system. More than 80% of hospitals across Sudan are not functioning. Currently, an estimated 11 million people in Sudan need urgent health assistance, including about 4 million children and women who are acutely malnourished, and there are more than 100,000 children under the age of 5 suffering severe acute malnutrition with medical complications. Now, a seaplane dropped water over an intense blaze on the Spanish Canary Islands as severe wildfires raged over Europe amid scorching heat and dry weather. Fernando Clavijo, the region's leader, said that the wildfire is the most complex the Canary Islands has faced in the last 40 years. Authorities warned the spreading blaze could lead to further evacuations and confinement, advising people to stay tuned to public service alerts. Over 3,000 people were evacuated from their homes on Thursday. China has said it firmly opposes the United States allowing Taiwan's Vice President, William Lai, to stop over in the country on his way to Paraguay for the inauguration of its new president. William Lai, also frontrunner to be Taiwan's next president at January elections, returned on Friday from a sensitive visit to the U.S., a trip China has condemned and which has brought warnings from Taiwanese officials it could prompt more Chinese military drills near the island. Lai officially only made transits in the U.S., first in New York and then San Francisco, on his way to and from Paraguay to attend the new president's inauguration in one of the only 13 countries that maintains formal ties with Taipei. China claims Taiwan as its territory and has denounced the transit stops in the U.S., calling Lai a separatist and a troublemaker. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has inspected typhoon-hit farmlands after tropical storm Khanun swept over the Korean peninsula last week amid mounting concerns over a food crisis in the reclusive country. Kim looked around the rice fields and observing drones spraying water onto crops with officials, which included his sister Kim Yo-jong. Kim praised the military's efforts to salvage crops and said the troops were mobilized because they cannot lose a patch of farmland to the natural rampage on the agricultural front directly related to the people's living. The North has suffered serious food shortages in recent decades, including famine in the 1990s, often as a result of natural disasters. International experts have warned that border closures during the COVID-19 pandemic worsened matters. Visitors were treated to a display of vivid humanoid robots, among others, at the 2023 World Robot Conference in China's capital, Beijing, with new technology that upgraded the human-like robots' expressions and gestures. Xier, a research and development engineer at humanoid robot company X-Robot, said the upgrade had enabled the joints of the humanoids to move more naturally and have more subtle micro-expression and finger movements. The human-like robots won praise from some visitors, while others expressed shock at their hyper-realistic appearance. The annual conference will be held from August 16 to 22nd. That is all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.